The unrelenting hum of the patrol ship's engines filled Captain Lara Mickelson's ears as she stared out the viewport at the barren, icy surface of Io. The moon, one of Jupiter's largest, had always fascinated her, its swirling volcanic activity and glimmering dust storms, each a testament to the raw power of nature. It was humanity's foothold on the edge of the solar system, a mining hub and a strategic outpost. But today, the moon's natural beauty was marred by something far more menacing. "Captain, we're approaching the sector." Lieutenant Arlo's voice crackled over the comms. He was in charge of the sensors, his calm tone betraying none of the tension that had been building in the crew for the past hour. There had been an unsettling silence coming from Io's surface lately, too much of it for Lara's liking. It felt off. Something wasn't right. Lara, her gaze fixed on the horizon, nodded. "Understood, Lieutenant. Keep your eyes peeled. We'll do a full sweep. If anything's out of the ordinary, I want to know about it immediately." The ship's engines whined as they adjusted their trajectory, and the crew's movements inside the ship slowed to a purposeful rhythm. Lara leaned forward in her seat, scanning the array of monitors before her. Her mind was always 2 steps ahead. The silence, the lack of incoming transmissions from the surface, the drop in activity, it all pointed to something wrong. Then it happened. The first explosion was silent, more of a flash than an event. The whole ship rocked with a sudden force that threw everyone forward, their bodies jarring against their restraints. Lara's heart skipped a beat as she scrambled to regain control, slamming her hand on the comm panel. "Status! Report!" she barked, her voice clear and commanding, the chaos of the impact still vibrating in her chest. "Captain, the surface." Arlo's voice faltered as another explosion shook the ship. This one was loud, a deep rumbling that reverberated through the hull. It felt like the entire moon was cracking in half. Lara's mind raced. "The surface is being bombarded," she muttered under her breath, though she knew her team had already figured that out. But why? No one had ever dared attack Io like this before. And then, the realization hit her. It wasn't just an attack. It was a calculated strike. "Send out all emergency protocols. Inform the surface stations. Evacuate civilians to shelter immediately," she ordered, gripping the console for support. She could feel the pulse of the explosions now, not only through the ship's hull but in her bones, a deep, rumbling thud that made it clear this was no random event. It was an assault. "Yes, Captain." Arlo's voice responded quickly, though his tone was edged with disbelief. "But it's Captain, these readings, they're not from any known weaponry. It's like they're using something we've never seen before." Her grip tightened. "Explain." The lights flickered, and static interrupted Arlo's transmission for a second. Lara swore under her breath. "Arlo, report now! Captain, the weapon, whatever it is, it's creating a massive shockwave across the entire moon's surface. It's like they're hitting us with pulse after pulse of energy." Arlo's voice came back, quicker now, though still tense. "And it's not just on the surface. There are secondary shockwaves in the atmosphere. It's spreading, Captain. It's coming from all over." Lara cursed under her breath. "What the hell are we dealing with?" "Captain," another voice chimed in. It was Lieutenant Fay, who was monitoring the external cameras. "I'm seeing something. A ship. Massive. But it's not like anything we've seen before. It's cloaked, barely visible. It could be one of theirs." "One of whose?" Lara snapped, now standing, pacing the deck, calculating every possible outcome. She already knew. The Kroner Empire. It had to be them. No one else could generate this kind of destruction with such precision. Faye's voice trembled as she spoke again. "Kroner, Captain? We're under attack. The Federation's been pulling strings on the outer colonies, but this is a direct strike. They're not playing around." Lara's mind raced. The Kroner Empire, with its vast fleets and superior technology, had been a growing threat for years. Their cold, calculating nature had always made them dangerous, but to strike humanity so blatantly? She couldn't allow that to go unanswered. "We're not going to sit here and wait for them to finish us off," Lara said, her voice hard. Activate defensive systems. Prepare to move out. Arlo, reroute power to shields. We're going in. Captain, the shields are already taking damage, Arlo warned, his voice grim. We're losing coverage on the outer sectors. Lara gritted her teeth. Then we'll fight back with what we've got. Inform the fleet that we need reinforcements immediately. I want every available ship in the sector to respond. We're not just going to survive this, we're going to make them regret ever thinking they could take us down. The comms were flooded with the sound of the crew scrambling to execute her orders. Even with their defensive systems failing, Lara remained steady. She could feel the weight of every decision, every second of their survival hanging by a thread, but that was nothing new to her. She had led in the worst of times before. Another explosion rocked the ship. This one was closer. The shockwave sent a ripple through the bridge. Arlo was thrown from his seat, his body slamming into the control panel. Lieutenant! Lara shouted, rushing to his side. She helped him to his feet, keeping her voice calm despite the storm of thoughts racing in her mind. Report! I'm good, Captain, Arlo replied, his face pale but determined. But this is bad. We need to move fast. The weapon, it's tearing through our defenses. Lara's eyes hardened. I know. Get ready for a brawl. We're taking it to them. Initiate evasive maneuvers, now! With the flick of a switch, the ship's thrusters roared to life, and they veered away from the moon's surface, dodging another incoming barrage. As the ship shifted position, Lara's thoughts weren't just on the fight, they were on what came next. This was no longer just a skirmish. It was an all-out war. But one thing was certain, humanity wouldn't go down without a fight. And Lara Mickelson would be at the heart of it. The devastation on Io was beyond comprehension. The once thriving mining colonies were now smoldering ruins, their infrastructures crumbled under the relentless bombardment. Lara Mickelson stood in the briefing room aboard her ship, the Perseverance, as a cold silence blanketed the crew. The damage reports from the surface were flooding in, but no one had the answers they needed, not yet. Lara's mind was still processing the assault. She had always known the Kroner Empire would make a move sooner or later, but this attack, it wasn't just a power grab. This was personal. Captain! Arlo's voice cut through the silence as he approached her, his face tight with anxiety. We've decrypted part of their communication. It's not just a random attack. This is a statement. Lara raised an eyebrow. A statement? Yes. They're sending us a message, Captain. Something more calculated than we thought. Lara turned away from the tactical board, her eyes narrowing. What are we dealing with, Arlo? The Kroner are trying to destabilize humanity's position in the system. This isn't a one-off strike. They're pushing for something bigger, something they think will crush us. Lara took a slow breath, her thoughts swirling. And they think bombing one of our moons will do that? No. There's more to it. I can feel it. Arlo nodded, unsure of what to say. I think so too. Lara's gaze shifted to the strategic map on the wall, which flickered in and out as the ship's systems adjusted to the damage. Her fingers drummed against the table as she considered their next move. Get me everything on the Kroner's fleet movements. All of it. I want to know where they are, what they're doing, and what they want from us. As Arlo left to carry out her orders, Lara couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that something deeper was unfolding. The attack was too precise, too targeted. It wasn't just about crippling their defenses. It was about sending a message that would unsettle the entire human race. The doors to the briefing room slid open again, and Lieutenant Fay entered, her face drawn with exhaustion. Captain, we've gathered the last of the intel from the surface stations. There's something else you need to see. Lara gestured for her to continue. What is it? Fay pulled up a holographic feed, and the image flickered into life, a series of grainy, intercepted transmissions between the Kroner command ship and an unknown contact. The words were partially scrambled, but the patterns were unmistakable. Listen closely, Fay said, her finger hovering over the screen. We've managed to isolate some key phrases. The distorted voice of a Croner officer crackled through the static. The human defenses on Io are weak. Initiating Phase 1 of the destabilization operation. The rest of the fleet will move in to secure the surrounding sectors after the moon falls. Lara's breath caught in her throat. Phase 1. What's Phase 2? Faye fast-forwarded the feed, the words echoing in the silence. The Federation is too complacent. They won't act until we've crippled the humans. Phase 2 is a full-scale blockade of their outer colonies. No reinforcements, no trade routes. If they want to survive, they'll have to beg us for mercy. Lara slammed her fist onto the table. They're planning a full blockade? They're underestimating us if they think we'll kneel. Faye exchanged a glance with Lara, her face hard. Captain, the Federation hasn't made a move yet. They think it's an isolated incident. They're waiting for us to respond. Lara's eyes narrowed. That's exactly what they want. They want us to react. They think if they attack one of our moons, we'll scramble our defenses and show weakness. Faye hesitated for a moment, her voice quieter. Then what do we do, Captain? Lara stood, her mind already working through the options. We don't play their game. We find out exactly what they're up to and expose it to the entire Federation. But we need more. If we're going to prove this isn't just an accident, we need to go deeper. We need to strike at their heart. Faye's eyebrows lifted. You want to go after their fleet? Lara gave her a cold, determined look. We hit them where it hurts. We find out where their fleet is headed and intercept them. We won't give them time to build momentum. We'll disrupt their plan before it even gets off the ground. Faye nodded. I'll start gathering intel on their fleet locations. We have to move fast. The door opened again, and Arlo stepped in with an urgent look. Captain, we've located the Croner fleet. They've been gathering just outside the outer rim, near the asteroid belt. It's a small force, just a few ships, but they've got something else we didn't anticipate. Lara's pulse quickened. What are they up to? Intel suggests they're preparing a convoy of ships for Phase 2. But there's one other thing. Arlo's eyes darkened. They've deployed a cloaked vessel. It's a stealth ship, Captain. We didn't detect it until it was already on top of us. Lara's heart sank. The Croner weren't just going to bomb their colonies and retreat. They were setting up a trap, and she had walked right into it. Are they still cloaked? Arlo shook his head. No. We've got a solid lock on their position now. But we've got a problem. The stealth ship's technology is far more advanced than anything we've encountered. If we engage them directly, they'll outmaneuver us. Lara's jaw clenched. Then we don't engage them directly. We do what we do best. We set a trap of our own. She turned to Faye and Arlo, her mind racing with a plan. I want a team ready to board that cloaked ship. If they think they can outwit us, they've got another thing coming. Get a squad together. We'll infiltrate their lines and find out exactly what they're planning. Understood, Captain, Arlo replied, a spark of determination in his eyes. We move fast, Lara said, her voice steady. We strike before they can complete their blockade. We find their secrets, and we destroy them. We're not just fighting for survival anymore, we're fighting to expose the truth and make sure the Federation knows exactly who they're dealing with. The crew moved into action, each person knowing the stakes. Lara's mind raced, but her focus never wavered. She was used to being on the front lines, but this was different. The Croner had underestimated humanity, and they would soon find out how deadly that mistake could be. The hunt for the truth had begun. Lara Mickelson stood in the center of the command deck, eyes locked on the tactical display in front of her. The Croner fleet, though small, was still a formidable force, and their stealth ship had only intensified the danger. The Perseverance had narrowly escaped detection during their last encounter, but this time, there was no room for mistakes. Status report. Lara's voice was sharp, cutting through the tension that gripped the room. Her crew had been working non-stop since they detected the Croner fleet, and she could feel the exhaustion settling in. But there was no time to rest. Captain! Arlo's voice came through, steady but laced with urgency. We've confirmed the fleet is positioned just past the asteroid belt, near a choke point. If we go in now, we'll have to fight through their defenses before they can retreat into Federation space. It's a risk. Lara nodded, weighing her options. The Kroner weren't just looking to disrupt humanity's progress. They were trying to cripple them, to stop their expansion into the stars before it became an unstoppable force. This wasn't just an attack on Io. This was a declaration of war. They're not expecting us to hit them head-on, Lara said quietly, her eyes flickering to the map. We take the initiative. We don't let them dictate the terms of this fight. Prepare a full strike. We'll catch them off guard. Arlo glanced over his shoulder at Faye, who was monitoring the comms and intercepts. Captain, we've detected an incoming transmission from the Kroner. It's encrypted, but we're working on it. Decrypt it, Lara ordered, her voice firm. I want to know exactly what they're planning. As Faye worked quickly, Lara's thoughts shifted. The Kroner might be waiting for them to make a move, but they had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt and react under pressure. The Perseverance was smaller, more agile, and more unpredictable than anything the Kroner could throw at them. Her fingers drummed lightly against the console as she considered the attack. It would be dangerous. The Kroner's fleet had stealth technology that could make any direct confrontation a deadly game of cat and mouse. But the Perseverance had something they didn't, the element of surprise. Captain, Faye's voice broke through the hum of the ship's systems. We've got the transmission. It's not good. They're preparing to move out of the asteroid belt and into open space. If we don't strike now, they'll be gone before we can catch them. Lara's eyes narrowed. What are they doing exactly? Faye's fingers flew over the console. They've started mobilizing, but there's a secondary mission. They're setting up a forward command post near an uninhabited system. It's a diversion. They want to draw our forces away from the colonies. Lara cursed under her breath. They think they can pull us into a false engagement? Not going to happen. Exactly, Arlo said, his expression resolute. They're trying to split our attention, get us chasing ghosts while they slip away. But we can't let that happen. Lara turned sharply, her gaze meeting his. Get us in position. Full speed ahead. We're not chasing shadows, we're going straight for the heart of their operation. Once we take down their stealth ship, the rest of the fleet won't matter. Arlo nodded and moved quickly to his station. The Perseverance wasn't built for long-range combat, but in close quarters, with their superior agility, it had the upper hand. The Kroner's stealth capabilities were formidable, but they relied on their ship's size and firepower to overwhelm their enemies. What they didn't account for was the relentless drive of humanity to fight back against insurmountable odds. The crew worked with a synchronized rhythm, each person moving with precision. They had no time for hesitation. The Kroner were moving fast, but so were they. The hunt was on. Captain, Faye called out again, her voice tight. We've located the stealth ship. It's almost completely cloaked, but we've got a weak signature from one of their exhaust vents. We can track it for a limited time. Lara's heart raced. How much time do we have? 30 minutes tops, Faye replied, her face etched with determination. After that, they'll vanish completely. Then we make every second count, Lara said, turning toward Arlo. Prepare to jump into position. I want full tactical systems on standby. We'll catch them while they're vulnerable. The ship lurched as the engines roared to life, pushing the Perseverance forward at maximum speed. The asteroid belt loomed ahead, a maze of rock and debris that could either be their salvation or their death. If they didn't make it through in one piece, the Kroner would have them dead to rights. Brace yourselves, Arlo called out, his hands dancing over the controls. We're going in fast. Lara's eyes remained fixed on the view ahead, calculating every angle. Her crew was ready. They would not fail. The asteroid belt loomed closer, and Lara's mind shifted into combat mode. Every decision, every move, had to be perfect. The Kroner might have the technology, but they had no idea how humans fought. Engaging evasive maneuvers, Arlo announced as the Perseverance cut through the debris. Each rock that flew past was a reminder of the stakes. One wrong turn, one mistake, and they would be dead. 30 seconds to intercept, Faye reported, her voice taut with focus. They're still cloaked, but I've got a solid lock on their emissions. Ready weapons, Lara ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Prepare for engagement the moment we have a lock. The tension in the air was palpable. Lara could hear the heartbeat of the ship, the pulse of its engines thrumming in the background, pushing them ever forward. Her thoughts raced with the weight of responsibility. Her crew's lives depended on her decisions. But she trusted them. They were more than ready. 10 seconds, Faye said. The ship bucked as they made their final approach, weaving through a series of asteroids. Lara's breath caught as she spotted the faintest shimmer in the distance, the cloaked Croner's ship, only visible for a moment before it faded back into near invisibility. Target acquired, Faye announced. We've got them. Fire, Lara commanded. The ship's weapons system lit up, sending a burst of energy toward the faint outline of the stealth vessel. The first blast struck true, and the Croner's ship flickered briefly, its cloaking field struggling to maintain its integrity. It wasn't enough. The Croner's ship began to veer away, but it was too late. The Perseverance was already on them, closing the gap with brutal speed. A barrage of fire hit the enemy ship's engines, crippling them. It attempted to retaliate, but their systems were too damaged. Lara's heart pounded in her chest. The battle was theirs. The Croner's ship exploded in a flash of light, and the debris drifted into the void. Lara stood tall, her eyes scanning the battlefield. Well done, everyone. We've hit them hard. But this is only the beginning. The Croner fleet had lost its most vital asset, and now, the rest of their forces would be easier to handle. Lara wasn't just defending humanity, she was sending a message: never underestimate the human spirit. The Perseverance drifted silently in the void, its engines humming quietly as it maintained its position just outside the range of the Croner fleet's sensors. Lara Mickelson stood alone on the bridge, staring at the empty expanse of space. The silence felt suffocating now. The battle had been a success, but the victory had come at a cost. The Croner were down one ship, but the rest of their fleet was still intact, and the danger was far from over. Captain, Arlo's voice cut through her thoughts. The rest of their fleet is still holding position at the outer rim. No sign of movement yet, but we can't risk them regrouping. Lara turned away from the viewport, her eyes narrowing. They won't regroup. Not if we make sure they don't have the chance. Faye appeared behind Arlo, her face taut with focus. We've analyzed the stealth ship's data. There's something odd about the way the Croner are operating. It's almost like they're trying to provoke us into a bigger mistake. Lara crossed her arms, her expression hardening. They've underestimated us. But they're not just trying to provoke us, they're trying to break us. They want to bait us into making a rash decision. To force us to go after them while their fleet slips into Federation space. Arlo glanced at the tactical map, his eyes scanning the enemy fleet's position. They think we'll take the bait. They're waiting for us to move out of position. But we can't let them draw us in. Not yet. Lara's jaw tightened. No. We play their game on our terms, not theirs. The hum of the ship's engines filled the silence as the crew moved into action, coordinating the next phase of their plan. But despite the steady pace, Lara couldn't shake the feeling that the Croner were waiting for something. Their next move had to be calculated, sharp, and direct. She wouldn't give them an opening. Captain, Faye spoke again, her tone urgent. There's something else. The Croner have sent out a communication. It's encrypted, but I've managed to intercept part of it. Lara's attention snapped back to the comm station. What did it say? Faye hesitated for a moment, then pressed a button, allowing the crackling transmission to come through. A distorted voice filtered through the static. They've taken the bait. The voice hissed. Phase 2 is ready to begin. Bring the fleet in. We'll finish this. They won't survive the next wave. The transmission cut out abruptly, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Phase 2, Arlo murmured, his voice dark. They're not done. This was just the beginning. Lara's heart sank. The Croner weren't just trying to engage in small skirmishes. This was part of something bigger, something more brutal. Captain, I suggest we move quickly, Arlo continued. We can't let them regroup. If they're starting Phase 2 now, we're running out of time. Lara was already moving, her mind racing. The Croner were playing a dangerous game, and they had no intention of backing down. We won't let them. Prepare the fleet for a direct assault. I want all engines running at full power. We're going to hit them before they can finish what they've started. The crew scrambled into action, the deck coming to life as orders were relayed and systems activated. But even as Lara issued her commands, something gnawed at her. The Croner were too confident. They were acting as if they had already won, as if they knew exactly how the battle would play out. Captain, they said quietly, her eyes glued to the data streams. I've been going over the transmission again. There's something off about it. The Croners seem to be expecting a counterattack. They know we're going to come for them. Lara stopped dead in her tracks, her blood running cold. They know? Faye nodded. It's as if they've planned for us to make a move. They're not surprised by our actions. In fact, they're counting on it. Arlo's face tightened. It sounds like they've been one step ahead of us this whole time. Exactly, Lara said, her voice low. They've been anticipating our every move. But they don't know us like we know ourselves. We've been underestimating them, but they've been doing the same to us. Faye's eyes flicked to the tactical map. There's something we're missing. If we don't stop them before they can complete Phase 2, everything we've done will be for nothing. Lara's thoughts raced as she processed the new information. The Croner weren't just trying to overwhelm them, they were trying to outmaneuver them. They had seen the pattern in human behavior, predicted their reactions, and prepared for every possible scenario. They think they have us cornered, Lara said, the realization dawning on her. But we're not going to fall into their trap. We're going to turn the tables. She moved quickly to the comms station, where Faye and Arlo were already working to analyze the Croner fleet's movements. Arlo, send out a decoy signal. We'll feign a retreat. Make it look like we're pulling back to Earth for reinforcements. Then, once they start moving into Federation space, we hit them from behind. Arlo hesitated. It's risky, Captain. They'll be expecting us to do something unpredictable, but they might not take the bait. They will, Lara replied, her voice hard. They'll think they've won. That's when we'll strike. We can't let them control the tempo of this fight any longer. They're underestimating us, and we'll make them pay for it. The crew worked quickly, setting up the decoy signal and adjusting the Perseverance's trajectory. Lara remained focused, her mind sharp as the ship prepared for its next move. The Croner were confident in their victory, sure that humanity would falter. But Lara had learned long ago that overconfidence was a deadly mistake. Faye looked up, her eyes intense. Decoy signal is active. They're responding. It looks like they're moving in for the kill. Lara's lips curled into a grim smile. Perfect. She turned to the tactical map, watching as the Croner fleet began to reposition itself. Their ships were scattered now, eager to finish what they had started, thinking they had the upper hand. But they had made a critical error. They had underestimated humanity's ability to fight back. No, Lara said, her voice steady. We make them regret it. With a single command, the Perseverance shot forward, its engines burning bright. The decoy signal had worked. The Croner fleet had taken the bait. Now it was time to hit them where it hurt. As the ship closed the distance between them and the enemy fleet, Lara's mind was clear. The Croner had thought they knew how this would end, but they hadn't counted on one thing: humanity would never be defeated without a fight. The Perseverance cut through the darkness of space, its engines a constant hum as the ship slid into position behind the Croner fleet. Lara Michelson stood in the center of the bridge, the weight of her crew's future resting heavily on her shoulders. They had baited the Croner into a vulnerable position, and now, the real battle was about to begin. Captain, Arlo's voice was tight. The Croner fleet's coming into our range. They're confused, think we've retreated, but they're slowing down. They're unsure of our next move. Lara nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. The decoy signal had done its job, luring the Cronner fleet away from their initial objective. It was exactly what they had hoped for, but the next part was a razor-thin gamble. One mistake, and the Cronner would regroup, bringing their superior firepower down on them with deadly precision. "How much time do we have?" Lara asked, voice firm as she walked toward the map, her boots echoing in the tense silence. 5 minutes, Faye replied, her hands flying across the console. "We have to hit them hard and fast before they realize what's happening. Their reinforcements will be here within the hour if we don't neutralize them now." Lara's gaze hardened. She knew the stakes. 5 minutes. It was all they had. "Arlo, prepare the main guns. Full power. I want a precise strike on their rear guard. Don't give them time to regroup," Lara ordered, her voice cold and decisive. "Understood, Captain," Arlo responded, his voice low with focus. Faye, meanwhile, had her eyes locked on the Cronner fleet's movements. "I'm tracking their ships. They're splitting up, some are moving ahead, others are holding back. They're trying to draw us in, but they don't realize we're already in position." Lara nodded, moving to the tactical map, her fingers brushing the touch screen. "Good. We use that. Split their attention and strike when they're divided. Give them no chance to recover." Arlo's voice came back through the comms, steady but tinged with urgency. "Weapons are primed, Captain. We're ready when you are." Lara glanced at Faye. "Set it up, Lieutenant. When we fire, it's going to be a 1-2 punch. We hit the rear guard, then go after their flagships before they can get into position." Faye nodded, her face tense. "Aye, Captain. Weapons on standby." Lara took a deep breath. "This is it. We've worked too hard to let them slip away now." Her hand hovered over the tactical board, a brief flash of doubt flickering through her mind. She had been in countless skirmishes before, but this felt different. The Cronner had been relentless, calculating. They'd expected humanity to fail, to fall into their trap. But Lara had one thing they didn't, the element of surprise. "Firing sequence in 5. Arlo called out. Lara braced herself. This was the moment. "Now!" she commanded. The Perseverance jolted as the main guns fired, a blast of concentrated energy streaking out toward the Cronner rear guard. The explosion was deafening, the shockwave rippling across the empty space as several Cronner ships were caught in the blast, their shields failing under the onslaught. Debris floated in the vacuum, and for a moment, everything seemed to stop. "Direct hit," Faye said, her voice a mix of relief and surprise. "They didn't see it coming." The Cronner fleet responded quickly, but it was too late. The damage was done. The Perseverance was already in motion, arcing around the wreckage, prepared to follow up on the attack. Lara's mind raced as she watched their next move unfold. The Cronner were trying to retaliate, sending a wave of fighters and gunships toward them, but the Perseverance was too fast, too agile. "Arlo," Lara barked. "Take out their command ship. We need to disrupt their leadership. Cut off the head, and the body will follow." "On it," Arlo responded immediately, his hands flying over the controls. The Perseverance veered sharply, avoiding a barrage of incoming fire. Their smaller profile made them difficult to hit, and Lara used that to their advantage, weaving through the chaos of the Cronner fleet. Faye's voice came in again, sharper now. "Captain, they're adjusting their shields. They're bringing reinforcements from the rear, more ships incoming from Federation space." Lara's eyes flicked to the tactical readout. They were running out of time. "We've got to end this fast. Arlo, focus on that command ship, don't let them regroup." Arlo's fingers moved with expert precision. "I've got a lock, Captain. Weapons primed. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The Perseverance fired again, and the blast hit the Cronner command ship squarely in the aft section. The ship lurched, its shields flickering before collapsing entirely. The explosion that followed was catastrophic, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. The Cronner flagship was gone, and with it, the organized structure of their fleet. Target destroyed, Arlo confirmed, his voice tight with satisfaction. But the battle was far from over. The remaining Croner ships were now disorganized, their once formidable fleet splintering into smaller pockets of resistance. They had lost their commanding officer, and the morale of their remaining ships seemed to plummet. Lara, sensing an opening, wasted no time. Faye, target their remaining fighters. We'll clear the skies before they have a chance to recover. Faye's fingers danced across the console. Aye, Captain. Locking on, now. Another wave of fire erupted from the Perseverance, taking out several Croner fighter ships in quick succession. The remaining ships tried to scatter, but they were disjointed, their tactics chaotic without central coordination. Keep pushing, Lara urged, her voice calm despite the chaos around them. Don't give them a chance to breathe. The Perseverance continued its relentless assault, tearing through the Croner fleet one ship at a time. The Croner, realizing they were losing, attempted a final push, but it was too little, too late. They were scattered, their leadership shattered. Lara could feel the tide of the battle turning in their favor. All ships stand by, she called out to her crew. We're not finished until they've surrendered. The battle raged on, but the Croner resistance was now more symbolic than effective. As their ships were systematically disabled, the final blow came when the last of their fighters was destroyed, and their remaining command vessels were too crippled to escape. Lara stood at the center of the bridge, watching as the last of the Croner ships fell silent on the tactical map. The hum of the Perseverance's systems was the only sound left. They had done it. Captain, Faye said, her voice low with disbelief. We've won. Lara exhaled slowly, her shoulders dropping for the first time in hours. We've won. But we've just shown the galaxy that humanity won't back down. Ever. The crew of the Perseverance stood in silent victory, the weight of the battle's cost evident on their faces, but in their hearts, a fierce pride. They had fought back against an overwhelming force and emerged victorious. And for humanity, it was a message they would never forget.